Hey guys, Bansherz here with my pre-patch hunter gearing guide. This is designed for people who have seen my beginner guide or at least have a decent understanding of the basic class and are wondering more about what stats to prioritize or what gear to chase. If you look at the top left of my screen, you can see a lot of my current talents, essences, traits, and trinkets equipped, but I will go over them all individually throughout the video. Also, it's important to note that a lot of this information will be dated once Shadowlands comes out, but since I keep getting asked about all these things, I figured I'd just put this out for those who want it. And if you look at the bottom right of my screen, you can see my stats, but I'll be opening my character sheet so you can see those as well. After the scaling of pre-patch, agility has become our best stat by a good margin. This means that you'll want to chase higher item level pieces with the most agility. In terms of secondary stats, your best stat is crit. You want crit on every single piece of gear. Your next best stat is haste. I found my sweet spot for haste given my level of crit was about 20%. Your fourth best stat is versatility, mainly because of how diminishing returns work on stats now in pre-patch. And your worst stat is mastery. Try to not have it on any piece if you can avoid it. So your stat priority goes something like agility, crit, haste, burst, mastery. Next up, we have gems. Since agility is so strong right now, you want an 18 agility Leviathan's Eye and a 12 agility Kraken's Eye gem in 2 of your slots. If you have any more sockets, I'd suggest putting crit into all of them since it's the next best stat. In terms of enchants, you want Gale Force striking on your gun to get more wild call procs, and for your ring enchants, you'll want to go for a Chord of Crit. So our talents are generally pretty set in stone right now. You'll always take Animal Companion in the first row. It's really important to note that Animal Companion will always summon the pet from the upper left slot in your stable. One with the pack works with our high level of crit and is one of the reasons we stack crit, then haste. Scent of Blood tends to work better when we have lower levels of secondary stats since it helps guarantee triple frenzy stacks and is often used at the beginning of expansions. Because of this, it may be the play at the beginning of Shadowlands. The third row, you have the option between Natural Mending for more self-healing, or Camouflage if needed for PvP or a particular dungeon strategy. The fourth row, you'll always take Thrill of the Hunt since we have such high levels of secondary stats. The fifth row is an interesting utility row. Post Haste is your typical go-to and can be used to increase our mobility as well as dispel a lot of dangerous slows in dungeons. Shrine of the Storm is a good example here. I often take Born to be Wild in Workshop where you can get multiple turtles in on the last boss, which is full of one-shot mechanics. The best talent in this row for dungeoning is Binding Shot, which will allow your group to have great mob control with a decent uptime. The sixth row, you'll almost always take Stomp, with Barrage coming into play in very niche situations with super spread AoE like Mythic Gahoon. The last row depends on the damage profile that you want. Aspect of the Beast will increase all of your pet damage by 30%. So it's stronger at AoE situations. Killer Cobra will be your single target talent that you'll take mostly for raiding, but it has some merit in some tyrannical single target dungeons. Next up, we'll talk about our traits. Your best trait is Primal Instincts, which gives you an absurd amount of mastery, and gives you a charge of Barb Shot when you activate Aspect of the Wild. Yes, earlier I did say Mastery was our worst stat, but this trait gives such a high amount of mastery that it turns out to be super strong. Since Primal is so strong and Aspect of the Wild itself is a relatively weak cooldown, you'll often hear me refer to Aspect of the Wild as Primal since the trait makes this cooldown amazing. Our second best trait is Dance of Death, which gives your Barb Shot a chance equal to your crit to give you a large agility buff. With agility being so strong and us already stacking crit for Wild Call, this trait synergizes well with our kit and gives us a decent buff to chase. For raid, you'll ideally want 3 Primal Instincts and 3 Dance of Death traits. However, for dungeons, there is one extremely important trait that you really only want one of: Rapid Reload. Rapid Reload makes it so that each target that you hit with multi-shot will reset the cooldown of all 3 of your aspects by 1 second. It only works if there are at least 3 targets in the pack, and we are currently target capped as a pre-patch, so we'll only hit 5 at max. When dungeons are pulled properly, Rapid lets us continuously get primal resets, and you can essentially have it up to like 40% uptime. If you can't get your hands on our best traits, honorable mentions here are Haze of Rage or Clockwork Heart, and you can use these to replace dances or primals if you have bad luck. Your best shoulders come from PvP, and they have Primal, Rapid, Overwhelming, and Resounding. There's a Mythic Plus shoulder, where you can purchase with Residuum, that is the second best, and it has Primal and Rapid, but has worse second and third tier traits. Your best helmet comes from Carapace, with Primal, Dance, Overwhelming, and Duck and Cover, and your best chest comes from N'Zoth, with Primal, Dance, Overwhelming, and Longstrider. If you can't get these traits, you can shoot your shot at the vendor to get some decent pieces to try and get as many Primals or Dances. For essences, this is your typical cookie cutter build for AoE. Your generic major essence is Blood of the Enemy. The crit synergizes with our kit so well, and you typically want to press Blood during your primal window. Your best minor essence is Vision of Perfection, since it will take your 2-minute primal cooldown and turn into a 1.5-minute primal cooldown, and it will sync up with Blood now. Your next minor essence will be Conflict and Strife, since it gives such a large amount of versatility. Your last minor essence depends on if you want to be specialized into more AoE or single target. Lucid Minor will be stronger for AoE situations, but Crucible of Flame will be stronger for single target situations. If you don't have any of these minor essences, Essence of the Focusing Iris is a great substitute for any of them and is very close in damage to them. I often get asked what setup I would run if I didn't run Blood Major, and I'd have to go with Vision Major instead. For minors, you'd run Conflict Minor, Lucid Minor, and Crucible Minor. The main difference in these two builds is that Blood will be heavier AoE burst damage, and Visions will be stronger sustained single target or sustained AoE damage. So you may have noticed I'm using an Intellect Trinket. I'm using it because it has an absurd amount of haste uptime. You'll have 113 haste with a 97% uptime in dungeons. This trinket costs around 2,000 gold on my server's auction house, but you can make it with like 500 gold worth of herbs if you'd prefer to save money. For your second trinket, I'd prefer the Vita Charge Titan Shard from Raden, because it also gives a ton of haste with a decent uptime, but it also buffs your groups with haste every single time you get a proc. Honorable mentions would be Deadeye Spyglass from Siege of Borealis, Arlen's Loaded Dice from Freehold, and Gale Caller's Boon from Shrine of the Storm. And that's about all I have for you guys. Thanks again for tuning into this video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this.